let me pull up some of my notes. Just tell you a little bit brief about myself and what this conversation will be about. Um, my name is Kwame-Michael Bracco, born in Accra, Ghana, but I was raised in the U.S. from several different states, all the way to my final destination of Los Angeles, California, where I had the opportunity to work on films such as The Avengers, Godzilla, SpongeBob, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, um, about 20 films out there. Yes. And so it gave me a great concept and background of working in Hollywood studio films. And then I founded Hallucinogem Entertainment, which is this channel that you all are tuning into. And the Hallucinogem Entertainment is the foundation of creating visual effects and animation. It's a creative studio to be focused on Afrofuturism, mythology driven storytelling, and as well as helping build in visual effects and animation in the country of Ghana, but as well as expanding in Africa by providing training to those in the sector of visual effects, animation, and gaming. So I've worked in quite a bit of international films as well and been a part of international festivals and artworks. Um, I spent about 3 years doing a lot of visual arts and ended up getting them displayed in countries all over the world. I've had several exhibitions, probably intend to do some exhibitions here in Ghana at some point. Right now, I'm working on a film called The Lost Comb of Maui, which actually won its first award last year at the Essence Film Festival in New Orleans. I didn't actually expect anything to happen there. I kind of created it and pitched it as an idea, but it was put alongside with some other animations that played and ended up winning an award, which then led to the buzz around it. I ended up getting the opportunity to meet networks such as Nickelodeon, Paramount, um, NBC, and a few. It was really cool getting to that point. However, I did not want to sell the idea, so obviously nothing went through with it. However, there was some interest in terms of production deals. So what that had led to was me continuing to work on the animation and trying to create a pilot. So I'm creating a pilot for it now with a series. I onboarded one visual effects artist out here in Ghana by the name of Jeffrey. And you've probably seen the posts lately that I've been doing on the Lost Comb of Maui. Big ups to Jefferson. Yeah, because he's been doing some amazing work in the visual effects side of things. And so, I attribute a lot of that clean work out to him. Right now, I'm focusing on the storytelling, the characters, the animations of the characters, and soon we'll be moving into creating the pilot. So that's going to lend opportunity to doing voiceovers, um, more visual effects work, animation work, and we're going to slowly try and build a team surrounding it and build the pilot out and then pitch it out there to the networks to continue on. There's also been a lot of talk about getting it into gaming as well, so I definitely have an idea of resourcing out to that. So I started it as a way to amplify the African narrative through high quality, cultural rooted content, stories merging mythology and sci-fi. I'm a huge Afrofuturism fan in terms of the concept and idea of it. Particularly because when you think of Afrofuturism, you think of seeing us in the future. And what happens right now is we don't get a chance to see ourselves in the future of sci-fi films. If you see sci-fi films, there's usually only about 3 or 4 of a film of sci-fi, as if our whole existence doesn't exist. And so I'm always thinking, well, we need to see a lot more of us, and the only way we can do that is if we tell the stories and do the narratives. But how do you do that when you don't have the skill set that you need? And I know in our community, a lot of times we have not been exposed to things like the different roles in animation and VFX and whatnot. So that's why we're going to cover all of that. And additionally, my role in this community that I hope to build and collab with others that are building community is to be an educator and mentor for emerging artists, also being a connection. There's so much potential in the country of Ghana as well as Africa, but being able to use my resources in the US and also the skill sets that I've learned and help train and bring people on board, I feel that it could be a way to expand and execute and allow us to be able to tell these stories. Everything from action animation to live action films and children's media. A lot of what's needed right now is children's media, um, because we don't see a lot of characters that look like us. And so I think that many of the conversations I have uh, tends to come around, hey, why not make animations for children that aren't in school yet, or something that can help build up in the school. So I'm really passionate about building the bridge between Africa's talents and the global creative industry. It's just a passion to me. I have been fortunate to have been able to live a nice full life as a creative, even from being young. My parents wanted me to go the medical route, as they were both in the medical field. And I actually went to school. I was in school for medicine, and in my last year, I stumbled in a studio delivering a package. And by accident, when I stumbled in that studio, I looked around and said, "Yo, what is this?" And I went to my father then and told him, "Look, there's something in me that's telling me that I got to do this. I cannot even finish this last year of med school. I have to go and do this." It wasn't the most exciting conversation with him, but he was pretty supportive of it. And I just promised him that, look, if I don't make it, I'll find my way back in science. But I was just determined. So I did. I worked really hard, learned a lot of visual effects and animation, particularly because I wanted to be in films too. I wanted to be in movies, but because I wasn't in environments that I could get the opportunity, I went and learned all these things so I could put myself in it. But it just ended up giving me the resources and skill set that I needed to get into the industry. So, what are we going to talk about today? As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my notes on the screen so we can kind of get into discussion of what we will be talking about here. So just give me 1 second. And the chat is open. So you can always feel free to drop in a question or a comment. I'll catch it and try and speak on it if I can. So let me go ahead and bring up the screen so you guys can get a chance to see what we will be discussing today. One moment. There we are. So let me bring this down. So today, our overview of the conversation, which we've already talked about my background and my work on Hollywood films. We're going to be talking about the creative and technical processes behind animation, visual effects, and gaming, the tools that would be necessary to be able to get into this, the free and paid software for use in production. Um, Generally speaking, I think right now the best thing that most of you can do is learn with the free software, which is actually creating content, studio quality content. So I'll give you a couple of the ones that I use that actually are used in studios as well. Then we'll talk about how different tools are applied in the real world. So you get an example for things that you might not have known that other tools do. I know for myself, once I got into the film industry and working on these films, I was opened up to so many tools I had no idea about, tools, plugins, and that expanded my knowledge base to be able to do what I needed to do and sustain myself in the industry. We'll talk about how to build a good reel, a professional portfolio, and at some point, I do plan to, for those creatives that are into it, I do plan to hold a session where I can review some of your work, talk about it, give you some tips, tricks on how to get some renders going, and whatnot. We'll also talk about. Actually, I probably will open up some time to do some online training as well. We'll talk about the career paths and job opportunities in film and gaming and visual effects. And I'd like to actually speak about the current state, of course, in Africa and where I see things going. I have plenty of conversations here with some of the film directors, other animators, visual effects artists, and let me not forget gamers that I like to just go ahead and say what my thoughts are. I really think it's a lucrative opportunity here to get into it. We'll even talk about AI. That's one of the hottest and biggest things being talked about right now, whether it's taking people's jobs or not. I know that there's a lot of artists or creatives, or actually everybody in the AI in the fields that AI is kind of tapping into, and so there's almost a kind of a AI war going on. You're not a real AI artist if you're doing this or whatnot. I will tell you, yes, I've had my reserves on it. There's some things I'm not too fond of. Um, I I knew how it was going to change the industry. However, I will talk about ways that you can use it to help yourself and still keep true to yourself. Because it's just going to be here to stay. But there are different tools that you can use that will help, that will continue to, what would I say, support you in what you're doing without losing the value of what you're working on. And then I'll also leave it up to some Q&A. Have some questions that any of you may have that we can cover. So let me just get this ready for you guys. Sorry. So we're going to start with, let me get this here. We're going to go ahead and talk about the creative process. And sorry, I need to restart, put my presentation up. Yeah, we're going to speak about the creative and technical process behind animation, VFX, and gaming, okay? So, that being said, let's take a look here. And sorry, let me close this up for you guys. So, a lot of you may already know some of these technical things, but I'll just kind of give you a brief play by play. And so, speaking of, we have animation, visual effects, and gaming in this. Animation bringing characters, objects, environments, everything into life. The visual effects is creating things within live action, things like explosions. You have your magical powers, entitled digital works. You have crumblings. You have glass shattering. Elements that you could technically make in real world, but you do it in with the visuals. Then in gaming, we have the interactive storytelling using animation and VFX that we use in the game engines, which we'll talk about the two most popular game engines out there to get into this. In fact, right now, that same game engine is what I'm using, or the team that I'm working with now. We're using the game engine to render our animations. It just helps things move a lot quicker. Then there's the creative process. The creative process that we'll talk about with the where it starts with the idea, the concept art, the storyboarding, script development, just touching on those so you can kind of get an idea of how it moves through in the process of a pipeline. World building, and especially I put a note here, especially in Afrofuturism, where we talk about the cultural references, the aesthetics, and mythology, how all these come together. Because by knowing the different areas of the this field that we work in, you can kind of narrow it down to what you'd be interested in. I initially got in this to do character animation, but once I started character animation, I saw the complexity of it. It wasn't my cup of tea. Speaking of, it wasn't my cup of tea, but I ended up going the visual effects route, which I ended up loving. However, now I can do animation after some practicing. And then we have the technical process. This is the modeling, rigging, animation, texturing, lighting, and rendering, which we'll talk about. Some of these words might sound a little foreign to you. There's compositing and visual effects. This is where you can take layers of elements. So maybe you have the background, foreground, character, and you composite them all together so that you can make one combined scene. If you do a live action scene, you can take real life footage and you would composite 3D elements into live footage. So, for example, when we were working on on Iron Man, part of my role was to create the explosion that happens on his condo. So we have live footage of the mountainside, but then the condo was generated in 3D, recreated in 3D. And then when the helicopter comes to shoot off the missile, that's all 3D. But when we have the crumbling, we're mixing both live footage with 3D, and it takes a lot of techniques to match the lighting, colors to make sure things look realistic and seamless. Then in the game development, there's the animation and gameplay. So if you go into gaming, some people just want to do the animating of the characters, maybe the visual effects of when a bullet hits something, or they're doing some certain moves, jumping, parking, I don't parkour through in certain areas. Then we have the team collaboration. This is when you get the different roles of people to contribute into it. Animating a whole story or doing a whole game can be very taxing. You can do it. It'll take much longer because you have to learn all the different roles. So, for example, right now working on the Lost Comb of Mawu, I do have um, I do have an amazing visual effects artist that's helping me with it. So I can focus on continuing getting the storyline together, the characters, and then he'll go ahead and do the environments and visual effects. When he's done, he brings it back, and then I do the sound, the scoring, sound design. But we'll talk into about that whole process, even getting into doing voiceover work for it. So well, I have a note here: creativity sets the vision, but technical skills bring it to life. You don't have to know everything, but understanding the pipeline is key. And that's this little section right here that I'm reading. So let's go into the next part of this slide. We have 2D versus 3D animation, and I get this question quite a bit, and sometimes I realize that you know many people might not know the difference. I know when I speak to my father about it, he's always asking what the difference is. So 2D animation, that's going to be on a flat plane. If you've seen any, if you have younger brothers and sisters, that's like Peppa Pig, or you've seen the Transformers cartoons. Those cartoons, the Saturday morning cartoons, a lot of that is 2D. Characters and environments are drawn frame by frame. But nowadays they actually have software you can do these flat plane characters and still do that. But in the old days when they did like Disney cartoons, they take a piece of paper and draw it, next piece of paper, and just flip it. That becomes the animation. Some of the tools used are Adobe Animate, Toon Boom Harmony, After Effects, and then there's the free one, Krita. So if you're interested in the free software part, Krita is a free software that you can download that will help with creating um, your drafts for your animations and cartoons. I have in use cases which are TV shows, explainer videos, stylized films, and mobile games. Most of these use 2D animation because it's not so heavily on the load. Sometimes you watch these YouTube videos that are explaining um, information, and it's a flat plane, looks like a cartoon character. That's 2D. So then now we talk about 3D animation. So 3D animation includes depth, allowing characters, objects to be rotated and moved in 3D space. So if I have this cup right here, this is in 3D space. I can move my hand around it. It's dimensional. We can go around and see everything. But you can't taste it. That would be 6D. That was a bad joke, but yeah, that's what it would be. But in 3D space, this involves modeling, and what modeling is basically using software to create this model as a cup. And rigging for characters is actually putting in the skeletons. If I was to model my hand, I need to put rigging is the concept where I put these joints in so that I can go ahead and bend them. And then, of course, you have your animating, your lighting, and rendering. All of that takes place like as if you're doing a real film production, but you're doing it in 3D production. The tools, Blender is the free tool that is available if you want to get into it. But then you have the paid ones: Autodesk Maya, Cinema 4D. Unreal Engine is free as well. Autodesk Maya and Cinema 4D are pretty high end. The Cinema 4D, a lot of it is used for motion graphics. A lot of these commercials and titles you see, Cinema 4D is good for that, as well as effects. Autodesk Maya also good for a lot of the 3D modeling animation you see. When we were working on SpongeBob the movie, Maya was used quite a bit. But right now, Blender has become a studio. Has become so studio quality. It takes care of so much of everything, and you can learn it from home. If you want additional tools to do some fancy things, you can download what they call add-ons or plugins to be able to do that. So these softwares are used in feature films, video games, virtual production, and architectural visualization. Uh, so a note here, they offer realism or stylized 3D effects with dynamic movement, camera angles, and used heavily in games and cinema effects. So that's what this is all about. So getting into all of the effects and cinematography of it, we use. If you have any questions, feel free to drop something in the chat and I'll answer as I can go. So, talking about the creative and technical process, I'll just kind of briefly go through these and not go word for word, but we have animation where we'll bring the characters and animators to life. Actually, sorry, we did actually go through this. This was where we spoke about the processes. So we have animation, VFX, gaming, the process. We're actually going to go into all these: the technical process, team collaboration, and the importance of whatnot. So let's talk about the technical process in 2D and 3D animation. In 2D animation, you'll do the concept and storyboarding. And as I'm telling you, these are different roles you can play if you were to pursue the career, but also if you're working on your own. Maybe you have an idea and you want to create an animation your for a story you're doing, or you have an idea you want to do a cartoon, or you want to do animation for a PowerPoint presentation. So it starts with the concept and storyboarding. You get the narrative shot by shot. You've written out the story. You know what it's about. Maybe you'll make a few cards that says a wide shot of the character running. The next shot, is a mid shot of the character going through the door, and so on. You're sketching out the storyboard. Then you'll go into character design and the background art. This is where you're designing the visuals to match the story and creating all the materials that's needed. In this case, with 2D, you might be doing the trees, the bushes, the house. Just think, when you're thinking of cartoons, think of all the different layers that is going on. This is where the character design and background art starts. Then you have the animatics. The rough animatic helps you kind of get the idea of how the animation will go. So instead of just going right into the animation, maybe you want to discuss with your team members, this is how I want the character to move, or how the plane should fly through the scene. So you just do a very simple basic animatic, which will give that idea. Then there's the keyframe animation. This is when you actually are taking it and you're drawing important poses or moments of movement. That could be, the hand clap. So you do one frame where the hand is, let's get one frame when the hand is open, frame hand is closed, and then so there's clapping. Now you're putting it frame by frame. Then there's the in between tweening. What is tweening? So tweening is very important in this. So if I have my hand here and I'm gonna punch something in the animation, maybe I started as a closed fist, then I have like anticipation. This is the next frame, and then the next frame above, I've done the punch. But I've only done 3 keyframes. The in between is I might want it to go up and down. So from going back to hit, the in between, I'll add a keyframe where I might move it up, the fist up. So now I've gone up and then hit. Then we have the compositing and effects. We're gonna layer the scenes, we're gonna add the visual effects, adjust timing and color here. So in this part, maybe, within the cartoon, you've already had the cat chasing the mouse. You've put the background in, you've put the animation of the cat chasing the mouse. You know, it swings, it hits something, but then you put this effect, dust cloud effect, that causes the cartoon cloud of impact. Then the sound design and final export. I really enjoy the sound design, but this is where you're gonna put all your sound effects and, you know, footsteps, glass breaking, scoring the film. All that stuff comes at this part because you're lining up the music and the sound effects with everything that's happening in the scene. And then of course the final export, which is converting it into the movie file that it needs to be. The 3D aspect is kind of the same, except from the storyboarding and previs, what you're doing is you're doing it in a 3D space and kind of giving visuals of how things will look before you put the details in. So maybe I've created a character with a basic suit, and there's just a pre-visualization of what I want with a bunch of boxes around that might be the buildings. So I'm kind of saying, okay, I want this character to be in this scenery. This is the city, but it's just very, very basic models with cubes and spheres and whatnot. Then you go to the modeling, which you're gonna build the characters and add the details. Then we have the texture and shading. We're gonna add the colors, or you know, if I'm a 3D character here, and this is the texture and shading, then I'm, you know, gonna apply the colors to the shirt and whatnot. Rigging then will be putting the skeletons to it so you can have the movement of things. Rigging can also be on, um, let's say, animals. So you rig an animal, for like animals, so you can animate it, or you rig a motorcycle. So maybe the gears, when you hit on the brake, something happens on another part of the gear. It's all related. After the rigging, now it's all rated for prepared for animation. This is everything from the posing, the facial expressions, movement. Sometimes you get it, you match it up with lip syncing, and then the lighting and rendering. So you have all your modeling, your textures, you have the scenes together, but you need to light it now. Just like if you're lighting in a real film, you will have you need to put your lights, you know, your 45-degree, your backlights. If you want it to be a big mood in there, a certain mood, then you have your certain lighting in it. If you want it to be a cool one, versus a warm shot, you know, all the lighting. And lighting plays such an important detail in it because it can make or break it. If your lighting is too bright or too flat, it doesn't give it an appealing. But if you get your lighting just right, things you can get some good realism going. And then the composite and post production, like I mentioned, this is where we put all the elements together and you get everything polished up and sound, putting your music and whatnot in there and prepare for its final output. So just a couple notes. 2D is often faster for smaller teams and stylized content. 3D offers realism and dynamic movement, but involves more technical steps. And understanding both workflows, even at a basic level, can help you collaborate or direct projects more effectively. So that's a key thing. Knowing these workflows are pretty important because once you know that, yeah, there's so many things you can do. You can also decide to dive into each aspect of it and maybe do something pretty cool. So in the team collaboration part, just so you know, this involves many roles. You have the animators, VFX artists, designers, coders, sound designers. This can be in indie projects, big projects. If you want to work on your own, you may want to get another person that does the VFX because it might be difficult for you. You might get somebody that you want to do the fashion design for the characters, or somebody that wants to do just the environments, or you wear all hats. That's kind of what I did in my lifetime of my career. I ended up wearing all the hats. The good thing about when you wear all the hats, you can be used in so many studios. It makes your value go far up. Yeah, your value can go really go up knowing some of everything, and that gives you a better opportunity to become something like a creative or an art director. A note: creativity sets the vision, but technical skill brings it to life. You don't have to know everything, but understand the pipeline. And yes, I really did learn and understand that when I was getting into the industry of things. A lot of it was just understanding the pipeline. Once I knew what was going on, maybe I mastered one area, but I was interested in getting into lighting. So maybe I'd move over to lighting and start to learn that. But understanding all of this, you can create and direct your own films. And if you're not able to get the help that you want, then you can still work out of yourself, getting the dream alive until you're able to move on for it. So now we'll talk about the visual effects part of it, the visual effects in the creative process. And we spoke about this. It involves creating and manipulating imagery that can't be achieved during live action. So we have our explosions, magical powers, sci-fi environments, digital creatures. We use these in film series, music videos, commercials, games, and virtual production. It makes the impossible believable, and it's where realism and fantasy collide. I love visual effects because I like the magic of it. I like the trickery. If I'm watching Rings of Power, or when they do those effects, I just wild out. In fact, me getting into the industry was when I saw the movie Matrix, and Neo did that bullet time where the bullets were coming and he went back, and I sat up and said, "Yo, what is that?" And I had found out that's what was called visual effects, and that's what steered me towards it. So we won't go this in detail. It's kind of like animation pipeline. So in brief, it's the pre-production planning, which is always necessary. Then you do the plate shooting. The term, we'll call it plate shooting. This is live footage capture. So for example, if you go outside in your parking lot and you capture footage of your car out there, move the camera around, that's your live action shooting. Or you put yourself in front of a green screen, then you're getting live footage. As you see here, green screen. Green screen work is cool because if you want to be in a different environment, you get a big green sheet, you do your recording, and then you can put yourself anywhere you need to be. Then there's match moving and tracking. You'll take the film or video that you have, you put it into a program like Blender or DaVinci Resolve, which is also a free video editing tool with several different features, and then you track it. And what you're doing is you're matching the movement of the camera. So for example, let's just take this cup for example. If I match move this, I'll go into my program and put points on here, and wherever I move the cup, it'll start to track it. Now, if I want to put some words or a logo on here and make it seem like it's part of the cup, I can go into the free program like Krita, make my logo, put it on the cup. Then when I go into post production, I'll stamp it on here, but as I move my cup, that logo will follow. That's called visual effects, and that allows you to bring that realism. Then there's the simulation and modeling. This is like if you're doing your fires and smoke. So again, if I'm doing a visual effects piece here and I want some steam and smoke to come out of it, let's just say steam, I would take this, I would do that simulation of steam and have it looking like it's coming out the cup. No matter where I move, the steam will follow it. You can get it even more detailed where if I blow it, you see the steam move around into whatnot. Then we talked about compositing. This is just, again, blending everything together. And then color correction, depth lighting. The softwares, After Effects and Nuke, these are pretty expensive. A lot of major studios use this, but I don't think you don't have to know it to get in there. You just need to have the concept. I learned After Effects, but when I went to the studio, they had Nuke, so I learned Nuke there, which was different. But DaVinci Resolve is the free software. If you want to get into video editing and have like very studio robust tools, DaVinci Resolve is good. It used to be a paid software, but they ended up making it free. But then if you want the studio version, which comes with a little more bells and whistles, you can purchase. But I really don't think you need all the bells and whistles for the work you'll do if you're not ready for it. I worked with DaVinci Resolve for a long time before I decided to get the studio version, which gave me a few added capabilities. And then, of course, rendering and final touches. Everything is rendering and final in there. So here's just a little creative thinking and visual effects. If you're into it, understand how light, movement, and realism interact. This is where things that you might have learned in school with geology, science and all these different things come into place. I never knew physics would come into it, but when I was working with tornadoes, I had to study and understand velocity, gravity, and all of those movements, which ended up being pretty cool. Balancing your technical skills and storytelling. And a note, you're not just adding effects, you're enhancing mood, world building, and action. All right. So let's talk about the gaming side of it. Game development is the process of designing, building, producing interactive digital experience and combine storytelling, animation, visual effects, and coding and the user experience. Unlike film or animation, games are interactive. So you're not just watching the story, you're playing it. It's a big thing there. And gaming is huge. Maybe I don't know who's in here that's not into gaming, but it's huge. I'm a big gamer myself, so I like to get into it and relax. But many times I also use gaming to, as I study. Some games might have some very good, interesting environments or effects or even the sounds, and I just enjoy playing to get that. In the creative process, this is kind of like everything else we talk. You do the story world building. You got they have what is called like the deep lore. So you're getting the deep lore is kind of like building a strong storyline around it, the plot, what is the theme of it. Then you have the environments and the characters and all the vehicles and weapons if they need to. Um, Designing it, this is where you're planning out what the players can do, any special tricks they have, the game mechanics. Then the art and animation of it is really fun. That goes into 2D and 3D as well. Whether you're doing a game that's in 2D or 3D and using those concepts that we spoke about. So the technical workflow, just briefly, there's the game engine setup, and this is what I mentioned we talk about. Unity and Engine is used to build interactive worlds. They're both free programs as long as you're not making $1 million or more. However, I wish I had to pay for it only for the fact that if I had to pay for it, it means I was making $1 million or more. But until then, I like that it's free. But you can get all your different tools and other assets for it. You can either make it yourself or purchase those to make your interactive design good. It also goes into the Oculus, those goggles that you have. I have an Oculus too, so I'll do a lot of environment design and test it out in there. So then there's your 3D assets integration. This is when you've created your characters and environments and get them in a usable plane. Then the pre-programming and logic. That I don't mess with that one too much. That's for the technical and really smart people. I think, like it says, is use a C sharp or blueprints in Unreal to control movements, dialogue, and physics. I do know how to use some of it, and I do know how to code some, but it's not my forte, I may say, but it's enough for me to, I know enough for me to learn and keep doing what I need to do. When I get more into game design, I'm sure I'll pick up some things that I'd like to get into. Then there's the UI and UX design. A lot of graphic designers like this. You create the menus, HUDs, tutorials, anything that the player interacts with. So the UI, if you've seen Iron Man, and sometimes they have the goggle and there are these little holographic words that come on, those are UI, user interface designs. UX, user experience. Then there's the testing and debugging, of course, making sure that if the player runs and jumps, they don't fall through the ground, something like that. Sound and music integration, everything that you hear here, everything has sound and music into it. And then publishing and deployment. Publishing and deployment is going to be like the version of animation where you 3D render, but you're publishing it to put it on mobile, console, or PC platforms. So, in terms of African context, and I've been looking into it, game development is rising. I know that there have been some game conferences that have been happening in South Africa and in Nigeria. I know Ghana is slowly building one up using all these tools, Unreal, Unity. It says gaming in Africa isn't just about entertainment. It's a powerful tool for cultural storytelling and youth empowerment. So I do see a big rise in game development happening in Africa at some time. And I actually encourage it because I think that we can tell some amazing stories with it. If you look like the Ghost of Samurai, you know, they get to use their culture, a lot of the beautiful environments to tell the story of their history. So imagine us being able to have our mythological stories and bringing it into gaming and doing some amazing things with it. Let's talk about some of the free and paid softwares. And the reason we talk about it is to introduce essential tools creators can start using today, regardless of budget, highlight options for beginners and professionals, and empower the audience with the tools. So let's talk about some of the free software. We got Blender 3D, and any of these you can go ahead and download now if you want, or um, get started on them. So you have Blender 3D, which you can do everything, a lot of the things that we spoke about, from 3D modeling to effects to even adding some sound design in there. Then you have Unreal Engine for the gaming aspects. However, I like Unreal Engine for rendering the animations because I can get real time and it renders much quicker. If I'm rendering out of Blender, it can take 4 hours to render. Uh, what I can render in Unreal within maybe 30 minutes or even less. Maybe I can even say 15 minutes. Might take several hours in Blender depending on the calculations it's doing. Then you have Krita. Krita you can compare to something like Photoshop. So you can do all your sketching and your designs and graphics and whatnot on there. Um, you have DaVinci Resolve, which is like a video editor, so you can use that. Even if you're just making live videos, if you're filming, making your own movies, you can use DaVinci, but it has additional tools where you can do your scoring as well as adding visual effects, color grading, which is good, making it have that nice, sharp, crisp colors. Also for making your show reels. So if you made several animations, or you're doing like your gameplay animation, you can make your show reel from that. And then GIMP is another one. GIMP is like another alternative to Photoshop. It's has all the tools Photoshop needs, so you don't have to pay for all of these things. The paid ones, I'm not going to go in detail, but you have After Effects for industry standard visual effects, Cinema 4D, popular for motion graphics and broadcast design, Toon Boom Harmony, which is very good for making cartoons used by major network stations. Autodesk Maya, that would be your Blender equivalent, good for making films and AAA games. And ZBrush, I actually have this. ZBrush is really cool, but it's sculpting. So if you're doing your characters or anything, you can do some really cool sculpting, much like clay. And tips: start where you are, use what's accessible, then scale as your skills grow. So maybe you might start with Blender, which is free. You get used to it, but you want to learn some effects. Maybe some of the tools on there are a little bit difficult to use, but you can grab some add-ons or plugins that will help you with it. Learn the principles first. Software has changed, but fundamentals of storytelling doesn't. So yeah, learn the principles. The foundations, everything to make your work appealing, and then focus on the 3D softwares or visual effects softwares that you'll use. Mixing and matches, many pros use a combination of free and paid. I I know I do. I have free software, but I also have a paid Houdini, which is very tough in doing visual effects. I don't use it as much now, but I'll mix in sometimes getting some of those animations in. We'll talk about the terminology so you have an idea when you're having the conversation around it, and helps you communicate more along with it and gives you the terms related. So we've talked about this keyframe, which is the main frame, marks the start or end of a motion. Maybe so. Here's the start frame. Then I put a keyframe here. This is the end frame. But don't think of it moving like this. It's just like boom, boom, and then, well, actually, if we played it, I did one keyframe here, and then another keyframe here, and I hit play, it will move there. That's keyframing. Then you have the in betweens. So maybe I have my keyframe here and this keyframe here, but then the other keyframe makes the hand go up, right? So now it moves like this. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. This is, yeah, boom. So that's the in between frames that fill in the motion in between frames. Usually in animation, you'll work at 24 frames or 30 frames, but then, so you, when I was in the studios, we did it in 16s, from frame 0 to 16 to 32 and so on. Then we'd come in between and do put one at 8 and then 24 and then go in between until you get it very smooth. Rigging, adding the skeletals so you can make things move. Rendering, exporting your animations into a movie file. And then frames per second. Frames per second, you hear in some of these movie terms, some do 60 frames per second to get good slow motions, maybe even 120 frames per second. But generally in animation, you go about 24 frames a second to 30 frames per second. The thing is, if you're doing your animations in 24 frames per second and you upload it to social media, you kind of get the little choppiness because social media likes 30 frames per second because it's usually dedicated for video, for live film. And then we have compositing, which we spoken about, merging the different elements together. Green screen and chroma key. So maybe if I had a green screen here and I keyed it out, keying is basically taking off the green. It'll make everything blank and I can put mountains behind me like that. And simulation, this is like when you're making fire, smoke, water. This is you use certain tools that will allow you to do these particle effects, rain, snow, all of that. Tracking and match moving. This is taking your live footage action, putting it in the software, and tracking the movement and everything. So if I move my head and I want to put sunglasses in post production, I can do that, track it, and then I make 3D elemental glasses. But when I play it back, those 3D glasses move with me. Masking and rotoscoping is isolating parts of an image. So if I want to take my head off and just look like it's just my body, that's rotoscoping. I'll put these little points that trace around my head, and then I can isolate it. Maybe only keep the head and put it on top of a chicken or something. And then in gaming, you have the game engine, which is used to build and run games. What we call assets is what we create elements. So a chair can be an asset, a phone can be an asset, a cup can be an asset. Characters, trees, all of these are different models and elements for it. Then you have blueprints, which is the visual scripting for Unreal. You don't use code, but you can use it to help um, create wind on leaves or character movements. Collision detection. Collision detection can be if I take, if I have a 3D hand and I drop some pebbles and I want it to hit, bounce, and actually see that there's impact, that's what you call it, collision detection. So game engines will use that. Maybe you're falling, you have to hit the ground, not go through. And then UX is the user interface experience, how players interact with the games, menus, and whatnot. And then, we've actually talked about rigging the engine. So let's just say don't memorize everything at once. Learn the terms as you use them, understand why behind the word, and is more important than the definition. So rigging the character, uh, blueprints to trigger animations, and in After Effects, compositing a shot to layer explosions. So those things. We just have a few more to go. So we'll just talk about building the reel and portfolio quick. If you want to get in this game, a good reel and showcase is what you need. And so I'll emphasize the difference between the reel and portfolio right here. A demo reel is a short video, typically 30 seconds to 2 minutes long, showing your best animated or visual works. A portfolio is a curated selection of static images, case studies, breakdowns, and process that you have. When I got into Hollywood, I had a portfolio slash demo reel. Well, I had the demo reel and portfolio, and it wasn't even completed to tell you the truth. But they saw the quality that I put into it, and that's what made them hire me. So I think one of the stuff they saw, I took an empty warehouse, but I was able to put all these dirt and debris all over the place, and I had like um, a breakdown showing it. Breakdown was just basically showing the live footage plate with nothing, and then it showed like this checkered part around it. What the checker part was doing was it was just showing. It was an overlay that was showing it moving with the camera, and then the debris showing. And I think that impressed them really well. So some tips: keep it short and focused. Lead with your best. Customize it for the role that you're wanting. If you're going for VFX, don't give a animation portfolio. If you're going for environment design, don't give a character portfolio. Go for what you're really going for. But show variety, different. You can demonstrate different skills for the particular thing you're going for. If you want to be a generalist, you can do that. A generalist will kind of show different aspects of animation and visual effects you know. I'll obviously include your name and contact info, and avoid adding unfinished or low quality work. Now, like I said, interesting for me, my stuff was unfinished, but it was an opportunity there, and they saw what I could do, and so that's what made it going. I made enough. Actually, I didn't tell them it was unfinished. Maybe that was the trick. I just showed exactly what I can do, but I knew what I wanted to finish it to. But it was high quality, and that helped me. Um, Building a strong portfolio, use the online platform, ArtStation, Behance, or your personal website. Again, organized by project or skill. Include personal projects. You don't have to wait to have clients to build your projects. In fact, if you're just working and practicing, do that. That'll help you. Add a process section because people love to see how you think. Yes, they do. I actually sometimes look at YouTube videos and I like to see the process. When I was hiring for certain roles back when I was in the U.S., I liked to see their process section because then I could see how they were putting things together. You know, some people, and you get an idea of their strengths and weaknesses as well. Share your work on YouTube or video for reels and animated sequences. ArtStation or Gumroad is good for visual portfolio. LinkedIn, if you want to go the professional route, which is really good. I've received many um, opportunities just being on LinkedIn and showing some of my stuff. Creating your own website is good too, so you can create your own brand as well. And then Instagram and TikTok if you want to build community around the work you do or you're trying to start your own thing. Here's a pro tip: your reel and portfolio are your visual resume. Remember that. Treat them like a conversation with someone who can hire you. Be intentional, clear, and authentic in how you present yourself, and you'll do well. Employers, what do we look for? Clarity of the role. Be explicit about what you did in each piece, especially T projects. So don't come with like a scene that has all kinds of amazing stuff and say I did that. But no, maybe you only did the smoke in this particular scene. So show that so that you're highlighted and you say, oh, you actually have skills in creating and matching the lighting and the smokes with it. Include your breakdowns or simple labels, character animation, the specific to what you're doing. We're looking for understanding, motion, timing, lighting, and compositing. Sometimes you don't have to be the best at what you're doing. Sometimes employers will see that potential and then take you in. We might see something that, you're really good, you can be much better, but you need more experience. So based on what you're doing, we know you know the fundamentals and concept, and we'll take you in. We also look for consistency and quality. If you have out of 10, three excellent pieces, put those three pieces in the beginning. Original thinking and creativity, make sure you do that. And problem solving skills, because a lot of the times in this work, there's going to be issues, and we want to see that you can do some good problem solving. Have good style alignment. We want to see if it fits our studio brand. So when I took in the visual effects artist that's working with me right now, I saw his work and thought, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, and I liked his vision. He had his own style, but it was in alignment with what I had for the film I was working on, and I knew that he had the vision. And so most employers will say, okay, you have the vision, we can just direct you, and then you'll be able to put it in. And be professional in presentation with clear layouts in it, avoid watermarks. That tends to take the value out of it. Studios want to know you can deliver. Your reel is proof, not just of skill, but of mindset and potential. So some of the career paths we'll look at. The let's go in. You can be a 2D animator, character animator. You could be a 3D animator, which animates rigs and physics realism. Storyboard artist, visualizing the narrative and doing creative direction. Layout artist, planning the camera angles and shot compositions. And a rigger, building the structures to animate characters. In VFX roles, you have the VFX artist and compositor. That's the guy that we have working on the film we're doing. Then you have the match move and tracking artist for the live action, which is always needed. Getting good at that can get you in so many places. Then the visual effects artist, simulating all the things that we talked about: debris, smokes, tornadoes, hurricanes. A 3D generalist, which kind of does some of everything: modeling, lighting, animation, and rendering. And a previs artist, they'll do the rough versions of the shots as you're trying to explain, so you have a good storyboard, pre-visualization. In the gaming side, you have the game designer who designs the mechanics and the levels. You have the technical artist who bridges art and code, they're coders, trying to make sure everything works. Environment artist, designing the immersiveness, all the environments, the landscapes, the trees, and whatnot. Then you have the character artist who are handling the characters, the designs, the costumes. And then the user interface designer for the gameplay. And then there's the cross-disciplinary platform. This is when you're moving up in your career. You can be a creative director, which is the role that my furthest role that I got to in my career. I want to say it's close to the highest role you can get in the creative career, other than becoming a CEO or whatnot. But creative director and art director. So that is where I got to in mind. And then you have the producer or project manager, which coordinates timelines, teams, and deliverables. You can kind of say they're like the creative administrative team of that, which at some point I'm going to be looking for a producer project manager for this film. Then you have the sound designer and composer. I love this part. I actually end up doing it as well, adding all the depth and emotion. If you see some of the clips that I've posted recently, you'll see that there's some sound to it, and that's adding to the mood. Each piece that Jeffrey does and submits to me, I go ahead and sound design so I can develop the mood and try and give a mood behind the character as we get it. And then you have the writer and narrative designer, building the world, dialogue, and stories. Again, I play a lot of these roles, but as things grow, at some point, I would want to grab some of everybody in these different roles. So some tips: start small, specialize later. Very important because there's so much to learn. Just start at what you enjoy doing, and then as you get better, grow in other areas. Freelance, a studio, both paths are valid. Freelancing builds range. You can get contract work from outside and all over, and kind of and build yourself. And then being in a studio, you can get real life teamwork, applicability, so that you get to learn about how all of this works together. Networking is super important. It's all who you know. Networking is one big thing. And as I've been in the industry, I've watched many people get opportunities simply because they showed up. They went to events, they went to conferences, and you just spoke with people, and they got to see your work hand in hand. Because in this industry, hundreds of thousands of people want to be in. So sometimes if you just get to know one person, it can change your life. Your reel is your resume. Remember that. Don't wait to be hired to get started. That's an important. I don't know if you guys can see that part. Let me leave this. Don't wait to be hired to get started. Collaborate with friends, join game jams, or create short films. Each project is a stepping stone, and you have no idea when that's going to be the one thing to do it for you. Now, we're just about getting to the last part. We're going to talk about the current state of animation and AI in this. The current state of animation in Africa and gaming. we're going to just briefly talk about the industry landscape of it, the highlighting the emerging opportunities in the landscape hub. So it is a growing talent pool. More people are learning visual effects animation. They're through online courses. There's a lot of independent creators. There's many people around. Believe it or not, I get many emails of people that looking for somebody to animate children's stories or help them with their own small videos, do character designs, um, flyers, motion graphics. There's a lot to do there. For the creative hubs, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt are really showing it. They're kind of up there of all the countries in Africa that are doing it. And so these are some of the studios around that are doing it. In Ghana, and I should have added, there's a studio I went and visited, uh, Mills Animation. Sorry, I might be saying wrong, but there's a guy, Jay Mills. They had the animation that just came out. I think they're going to be here at UCC called The Guardian. So they're a studio out here as well. Attending events around Africa is very good. I particularly in myself, I am trying to create an animation and gaming event in Ghana. So we'll see how that goes. African projects are now being featured in global festivals. You guys have probably heard of Iwaju. This is very momentous because that's coming out of Africa here, Nigeria to be exact, and we're seeing it on Netflix. So there's opportunity to get out there. Lost Coma Power is part of this new wave. That is my project that I'm working on, an Afrofuturism action uh, series, and so it's definitely on the works. It's been noticed. I am working on the pilot. I have um, award-winning best-selling author in an Afrofuturism sector that is working on the Lost Comb of Mawu, writing the script right now, almost finished, and then we should be working on the post-production for it. There's opportunities in remote work. You can find those in platforms like Upwork, ArtStation, Fiverr, and Behance if you're looking for work. Content licensing and distribution, you get some good stuff going. You can actually start streaming your own series and films and get some sort of license and distribution deal. And the gaming potential is huge and massive. There's so much space in Africa for it, a lot of space. Just got to build the team and get the right people by you and with you, and it can happen. There's still some challenges, obviously, which is limited access to high performance hardware and internet. Funding and mentorship for large scale projects is definitely hard to secure, and lack of policy support in some regions. But the wave is building. Africa isn't waiting to be discovered, it's creating, and the world is noticing. So it's just use what you can. Um, if your computer isn't powerful enough, it's fine. You can still learn what you need to without going large scale. And let's see. And AI, well, so AI is a pretty big conversation in this. There's a lot of war and battle, but I'm just more here to tell you about how it can be used. Um, you can use it in areas like clean up motion tracking or lip sync. So I'm not actually talking about like the AI folks that generate art and say, okay, I've made this art piece and I'm selling. No, I'm talking about real life usage. You don't have the money to get a team. Maybe you want to do the lip syncing, but you don't have the skills to go ahead and match the mouth. Well, there's software that you can take your 3D characters and it has speech to sync or something like that, audio to lip sync, which will match the tones and contonations of what you're doing to the mouth movement. You can use it for taking background removal, which helps in that. Um, Pre-visualization, I use it in pre-vising when I'm trying to discuss or get an idea out to my visual effects guy. So sometimes instead of me just going sketching it out, I know the idea. I might sketch it out quick and then I'll go into the software and generate an image and say, okay, yeah, I want the scene kind of like this. So, excuse me, let's go ahead and build around that. There's procedural world building using AI and NPC behavior, which is basically like procedural modeling. So instead of having to go and 3D model one tree, You can have these procedural modeling that will give you the landscape that you need and do amazing features in it as well. Then you have your writing like ChatGPT, which can help you um, write scripts, generated music tools for creating adaptive soundtracks. I don't really use I don't use the AI generated music tools at all. I've used them before, but I like making the music myself. But again, these are tools if you just don't have access to certain things or people or funding, then it can help you creating what you need to. Then one day when you're making all of that, you can actually do it the un AI way in so many words. AI lowers barriers that fewer people, smaller budgets of fast production. Solo creators and small teams can compete visually with bigger studios, yes. And local stories can be developed faster and iterated more affordably. Great for concept idea testing. So it can help us leapfrog limitations, but we have to learn how to guide it, not be replaced by it. One thing, and that's what a lot of people are kind of doing, the ones that are being a little overexcited using it do not realize that they're training it how to take their jobs. No, you need to use it to how to figure out how to help you. So if I might want to make a costume, and what I could do is use AI imagery to give me a particular pattern I want. And so it'll give me a seamless pattern and then I can put it on there. But I might not go make a full character from AI and a full cartoon and just everything AI and just say, oh, I did it all. No, I will take elements and help it do some things. So ethical considerations, a lot of it right now is trained on non-African data, limiting cultural accuracy. So at this point, with it blowing up, only we can do that. So we have to take our time in training it ourselves, whether people like it or not. Our continent has to come out there and train it so that it can do a better representation of us. It does replicate styles of voices without clear attribution. So that's where some things are happening. Job displacement, yeah, it's taking jobs. The company that I worked at in gaming decided to wipe off the whole creative department because they decided to go the AI route. You could save tons of money. So our whole creative department was wiped out. So people are losing jobs, but what can you do? You can just get better and find the right tools to make it better. So cultural responsibility, African creators must protect authenticity and originality in storytelling. We can try and look in ChatGPT for a lot of African storytelling, but if we're not the one creating it, somebody else will, and make our whole stuff misconstrued and end up telling ChatGPT that we happily gave our people up for slavery when it wasn't the case. So we have to be the ones responsible to help train it for accuracy. So use AI as an assistant, not a replacement. Because if you use it as a replacement, it will replace you. Combine it with human storytelling, values, and cultural sight, and be transparent about AI generated elements in your work. Reason being that if you do not do that and you try to act like it's all yours, and by some way someone found out it wasn't, you lose all your credibility. And even if you're a good artist and you try to do something that isn't, people won't believe you. So you have to be very careful about what you admit you use it for and not. It's a tool, not a vision, and the vision must come from you. Now we're at the end of where we are right now. I know this was a pretty long one. I am probably not even sure who is all on here. Sorry, I can't see everything right now, but I am opening it for questions if anyone is here. Um, you can feel free to drop one in and I can answer anything that you might have before we close out here. So if you'd like, have a way with it. Ask me a question or two. I am looking in the chats. One question I always get asked is if do you need to go to school for this? No, I knew many people in the studios that didn't go to school for this. They learned everything online and became very good. In fact, many people save themselves a lot of money not going to school for it because school is quite expensive for visual effects and animation. However, things are becoming more affordable. For me, I do know that I will be opening training sessions. Most will be free, in this beginning, but some might be paid. But I do intend to open training for visual effects and animation, and I'll be coming online to do those, some free sessions, everything from sculpting to modeling to visual effects. Another question I get is what should I focus on first in animation or VFX? Well, focus on what you're passionate about. If you really like the idea of creating characters, then learn how to do character creation. If you like environments, the idea of creating landscapes, then start on that. Then start in what you're passionate about because it's easier for you to, um, how do I say? It's easier for you to be into it versus trying to look for something that you're not into. So yeah, if there are no questions, we did a very good job of a good hour and 15 minutes here. Um, I want to thank you all for coming in and participating and listening into this webinar. I hope you find a lot of information valuable. And if you want to keep in contact with me, well, let's see. For first, we did cover a lot today, from softwares and workflows to career paths and the future of creating technology in Africa. Yes, we did. And so I just want to say, if you're just getting started, remember it's okay to grow slowly. Consistency and curiosity more important than perfection. Okay, and your story, your perspective, and your voice matters. Whether you're in Accra, Nairobi, Johannesburg, or beyond, you belong in this industry. So that's what I like to say. Oh, here's a question. Why did you decline the offer for production of the film? And are you interested in co-production? Or are you co-producing this project, Lost Comb of Maui? So why did I decline the offer? So when I went and I first met with CBS, and then they took me off to Nickelodeon. CBS really more works with crime television and whatnot. However, they were interested with the concept and the theme that I was in. So, see, Nickelodeon is under their umbrella company, and since it was animation, they sent me to Nickelodeon. Now, Nickelodeon is more focused on children's animations, but they also have other parent companies that are in the animation, like Paramount. So why did I decline it? When they saw the 5 minute preview that I had, um, what they mentioned to me, this I already had too much in it, and what they meant by that was a lot of the detail and storyline was, I mean, yeah, fantastic. They loved it, but they said that if their studios took it, they want to have a lot more control on it, and so they said that would make it harder for them because it's so much that's built on them, and their idea was if they took it on, I would more most likely become like a co-writer. Their team takes the concept, the idea, and then they formulate against they formulate what they could see out of there based on what I did. And so my stuff had too much detail into it to where it's going. So it came to the idea of, well, would I be willing to sell the idea to them and then be a co-writer? And so I said no because I knew where this could go. Obviously it can go into gaming, franchising, where you know I was creating combs already for it, franchising and merchandising and all of that stuff. And so I knew that if I was to go ahead and sign it away and it did well, the money, obviously the money would still be good, but it wouldn't be as good as it could have been. Because imagine selling um, the concept of Spider-Man, and then it ends up becoming a franchise and expands into more. Now you've only taken your small percentage, but you cannot get access to its merchandising and all that because now you're just a co-writer on the team that took a deal. So I decided that I did not want that type of deal. So what they mentioned was, well, instead of that, what I could look at instead would be a production or distribution deal. A production deal would be more like, okay, I have this pilot done and much of the elements together, but I need some money to be able to hire people and get the rest of it done. I'll still have total control, but now once they come in with the production deal, Of course, you pay back with interest, and they have a percentage of shares. Then the distribution was the other side. I go out, I do all the work, and then I come in and I license and distribute. So I prefer the licensing and distributing, so that way that there's total control, and it stays with us. When I say us, it stays within our boundaries and it's not taken away and changed into something that I wasn't interested in. So that's the reason I didn't. And the other part of the question, are you interested in co-production for this project? I would say yes. Co-production, it kind of lands into something like the production deal because it's still, you still have all the elements of the story together. You have the great foundation of it, the writing, but you might not have all the resources you need for production. So I have looked at that and said, yes, I could, to answer your question, I would do co-production if that opportunity came. And it says, are you co-producing? Yeah. So this time it's just me. Right now, I've been the one working on the whole aspect of it, and then I did bring on a writer and a visual effects artist, and so that's right now it's just a team of three at this very moment. And once the writer's done, then it's just gonna go into production for the pilot and whatnot. Um, and so yeah, that's just where it is. But the idea is once the pilot is done, we've already mapped out how first season one would look and how season two would start. So basically, with the pilot would be the first part that just gets the story going, and then we would storyboard the rest of the season to give an idea of this is the intention of how it moves, and then continue with the production of it as well into it. So I hope that answered your question. Yes. Are there any other questions um, in terms of what is going on? And yeah, if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We're definitely going to continue working on this quite a bit. I think, yeah, here, let me put up my information. And I see another message. Let's see. Since the debut of the festival, what is left to produce? I heard you stated that you're looking for voices to lend for the film. Me. Yeah, so since being at the festival, it did open many doors to this, and I finished creating a pitch deck. Obviously, I just missed this last quarter. There was a producer out in LA that was interested and had me do a pitch deck to send it to them because they were looking to invest in a few productions. However, I missed the deadline. Um, again, this was a lot of work, but that's okay. I'll do it for the next quarter. And um, yeah, it's gotten quite a bit of buzz since I've been here in Ghana, and none of these have aired, but I've done a few interviews, some that will air on TV and some that will air on the internet. In fact, this upcoming week, there's a production crew coming here to do another interview on me on this, and so um, yeah, especially for once the pilot starts, voicing is definitely going to be a need. We have, I think, a total of 12 characters that are going to be the main source. There's the Afro cyberpunks and the Afro solar punks, and those are the two sides that are going at it. So yes, there's going to be definitely opportunity for voicings. Um, and interestingly, I've only had a few people say that they are interested, and I only say they only a few because many people have not known that I'll be looking for it. So it's kind of nice if you're here. Then that leaves me to be able to reach out to you for it. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, I'm moving to the testing of the voicing and lip syncing. I did mention that the lip syncing part could be very tedious. However, I am using tools to match mouth to words. So, in fact, you'll probably see me posting pretty soon some of those behind the scenes as I'm going to voice one of the characters, and I'm just going to kind of put some of that out. So, to answer your question, yes, I will be looking for voices for these characters. And I think maybe in the next few weeks we'll have the whole character sheet out so everyone's able to see all the characters and their roles in this animated film. I'll probably say hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks we'll put all of that out there. And I would love to start on the pilot production as early as June. I would have wanted to do it in May. It's possible it could still be May, but I'm probably going to say June because I have to go out to the US just a couple of weeks. So, yes, there will be opportunity. And as a matter of fact, I have put my information on here. Oh, but I did. Oh, yes, my email is michael.bracco@gmail.com. This is my email for direct, or you can contact me via Instagram. These are the two Instagram pages, hallucinogem.entertainment. Oh, there is a misspelling. Let me take care of that right now. Let's not forget the N. Hallucinogem Entertainment right now. This is the name of the production. And this is the channel where a lot of the content will be placed. We're just starting a newsletter too, which will be the newsletter will have those opportunities that come out. But for you being here at this moment, you get first access and dibs to getting this information. So um, I actually encourage you to continue keeping up with me. So as soon as that comes in, yeah, we can go for it. What I would do is I would send you a piece of the script. You can read it. I'll try and match which character I can hear it going with. And then, yeah, I'd be open to have you take that opportunity and do that. And my question is, have you had a chance to do um, voicing in any other stuff? I mean, I saw you on the red carpet doing your thing, and obviously, yeah, your voice is very well. You have a how would I put? Yeah, you have a voice for the entertainment industry. That's what I'll say. Yeah, your red carpet stuff was good, good. So I would say, yeah, I think you would do really good here too as well. And yeah, I'll there's probably gonna be one, two, three, five, yes, five women in this category for voicing. Two queen mothers. No, there's gonna be more. Two queen mothers. There's a ship pilot. There's a girl that was a model slash mechanic, and then there's their um, the other side of that, which they used to be one of the friends, and then another queen mother. So yeah, there's I think 6 or 7. Yeah, please send it to me. You have my information here, and I would love to see how we could work together on this. So, if there are no other questions here, then I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. I think that this was a very great first stream that I had, and it actually helps me as I'm preparing for other talks that will be coming up in Ghana that are being put together. So this was kind of like putting all my bullet points and preparing. So I thank you all for coming in and being on the stream with me, and look out for future ones that might come up. I am working on another conversational one, which may just be showing behind the scenes on some of the work. I might do something where I'm actually scoring, might even sit with me in the studio while I'm doing some of the voicing. So I plan to make this a little bit get more interesting as well. So thank you all for joining, and I am going to get ready to sign off, enjoy myself a cup of tea, and please send me a note and a message, and I'll get back to you all. Thank you all so much for coming.